I think it's that. Okay, recovery.
Repentance.
Repentance, very good.
And resignation.
Very good. Ashaya. Exactly. Excellent. Excellent. Give this guy a hand. So, today, we're talking about what does recovery mean? Anybody know?
When you recover from like addiction.
Masalan, yani. Good. Recovery, maybe you fall from something, you get back up. And what does repentance mean? Tawbah, very good. We have translation services all around available. That's always good. So, anybody recognize this verse? We're going to read it together, okay? It says, whoever commits sin is a slave of sin. Who said that? John. Very good. Wrong. Next.
St. Paul.
Next.
Paul.
Paul.
Jesus.
What is JN? What could that possibly be?
John
or St. Paul. I guess that was the other backup. The backup guess. No, this was in the Gospel of St. John. I remember there was 4 of them.
Yes.
And a lot of the person who was quoted a lot in that Gospel, Jesus. Just trying to take it from the top. Just cover all bases. He said this idea of if you commit sin, you're a slave of sin. Have you ever thought of yourself as a slave? Maybe. You feel like, oh my God, homework is so enslaving. It's like high school is so hard. You feel like a slave to high school. Right? I guess. I mean, what else makes you feel like a slave? Mama. Yeah, your parents really give you the slavery. SATs, studying, right? Your career. It's like, oh. Our topic for today, we're going to talk about substances. Ooh, yeah. And we want to understand it first as from this verse. Today, I'm going to give you an opportunity. You get to pick who you serve today or who your master will be. In other words, this is my question for you for today. Okay? Just to keep it real appropriate, keep it real 100. Okay? You didn't pick who your father was, probably, when you were born. But did you know, Bishoy and Bachomius and the rest of us here, did you know that today, anybody here named Bachomius, just in case, you never know. Today, fellas, welcome Bachomius. Today you get to pick your master. Today you get to pick the person who you're going to serve. Who you're going to follow. Because if Jesus' words are true, and if you commit a sin, you're a slave to sin. And sometimes that sin could be something you do. It could be a habit. Sometimes it could be an addiction. Sometimes it could be a lifestyle. In a positive sense or in a negative sense. So this is why this is our guiding question. This is our beginning main focus. And I ask you real quick, what is addiction? Anybody know? I want to give you an idea what addiction is. What is it?
It's a behavior that causes you to be destructive and take your time away from them.
Okay, I like it. It's a behavior, as an important word, to cause you to be destructive and takes your time away from other stuff. Any other thoughts? What addiction is? Raise your hand if you've heard something about addiction in school. Taban. Right? You have to, right? Because it's like, you can't get away from it. Raise your hand if you heard something about addiction in church before. Good. I think specifically there was a vaping lecture from Huna. I remember seeing that. Was there other stuff? Was there other lectures? No? Okay. So you just heard the idea of the word addiction, or you heard an actual talk on addiction?
No, we've heard a talk.
You heard a talk on addiction. Okay, good. So you're experts. You should be able to. Oh man. So here's my question. You got a drowning guy. Masalan. This guy's drowning in addiction. One person says this is a spiritual problem, right? Maybe you go to a spiritual guide and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this thing. Maybe it's vaping. Maybe it's something a little more serious. Is the answer just a spiritual answer? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you go to a doctor. The doctor says, I have the answer for you. The answer to your addiction is meds. Because addiction is a disease. How are we doing so far? Which one do you want to pick? The first one or the second one? Let me give you a third option. Maybe it's you go to a shrink. You go to one of these psychiatrists. You know what a psychiatrist is?
Yeah.
Right? A mental health professional.
بيقولوا كده حاجات.
And he tells you, no, tell me about your mom. Like, I think really the problem here is mom talk. We don't want to talk about anybody's mom. All respect to all your moms. All the Marys and Marinas and become moms later on. So which one is it? At the end, you figure, well, the person drowning is like, help me. I'm like, I'm dying. I don't care if it's my mom, if it's prayer, if it's medication. And sometimes I'll tell you just on the offset, depending on where you're hearing this kind of talk, the answer could fall a little bit too much in one direction or another. A little bit too much. If you're just talking to people in the secular professional world, maybe somebody will just tell you, hey, there's a new FDA indication, Vivitrol, like this medication. Have you learned that yet? You're going to cover it eventually. This medication will really help cravings. Shh. This medication will really help cravings. This medication will really help impulse control. This medication will really help joy. Welcome. They heard joy and they thought of you. Our goal for today is to understand that in the Orthodox Church, we have a holistic approach. We don't think that you are just made of a brain, or just made of a soul, or just made of your parents, the byproduct of your parents. You're one person. One person. So, addiction, which the term isn't even used anymore, can addiction lead you to sin? Yes. Is there a disease process? Like a disease, meaning, let me ask you a Coptic trivia question. You may or may not get this one right. Can you be genetically predisposed to an addiction? Taban, no. Of course not, right? That's what some people are saying. Because how could God make that? Right? Isn't that what we would think? So I'm sorry to burst your bubble. You absolutely can be. And it's been... Sorry. Maybe I tripped you up in the beginning. Shh. Why do I tell you that? Why do I tell you that? To understand the disease part, and this is why I want to try to incorporate for you all three today if I can. There is a disease part, there is a biological part. Separation, you got to do it. You got to do it. Got to do it. The other part is if I see a phone, I steal it. I'm just telling you, just confessing my habit in talks. Whenever I just have an eye for them. I sell them on Amazon immediately. It's like yeah, it's an addiction. It's a very profitable business. Stealing phones in talks. So, did you know that? Raise your hand if you already knew that you can be genetically predisposed to alcoholism, for example. Some of you did. And some of you are, maybe. Sorry. Just kidding. Just kidding. I don't know what your genetics are. Real quick, though. How we reconcile that for us, without giving you a long theological lesson, the way that you can understand that there is a disease component to addiction. Did you know, or you are, I know that you know, when you learned about the fall, when you learned about that man was created perfect, no addictions, no ability to do this kind of stuff, when we fell, a disease entered into us that broke everything that we do. That's a short spiel of theology there for a second. Does that make sense? Okay. I won't belabor it for you. Side note, we're going to skip a little bit of this, but I wanted you at least to know that the word addiction is not even used that much, and that there are some things that are not necessarily categorized, but they're thinking about putting them in. Gambling, impulse control, internet. Like, anybody here play Fortnite?
I'm not good at it.
You wish you could play more. I felt like it got really quiet. Do people not want to say they play Fortnite? It's okay if you do. If you play a video game of any kind? Okay. So there have been people now that are going into rehab because of how much online video gaming is. Anyway. I'll skip this too. But basically, I want you to understand from this is that there is a biological, there is a spiritual, and a social, and a psychological component to this kind of stuff. Skip. Here's how St. Paul described this to us, though. We'll read this together. Or I'll just read it for you and you can read along. He said, for what I'm doing, I don't understand, and I'm not practicing what I would like to do, but I'm doing the very thing that I hate. Basically, the thing that I hate to do, I'm doing, and what I will to do, I don't get to do. Have you ever had that feeling? Yeah. You ever had the feeling of I know I gotta do, but what I'm really doing is, how could that be? How is it that you cannot be doing the thing that you intend to do? Please, Curly in the middle. And Mo and Larry next to you. I mean, you're probably not old enough to know that joke, but... So, good, very good, very clever. So let me tell you this. So we all are saying we are familiar with this experience. We know that sometimes we want to do something, but we do the opposite of it. And we know that sometimes that can go so far as to bring us down a dark hole, like my man over there said. What'd you say? What was your name?
George.
Well, George said, you can get to the point where it's addictive, and now you're off the deep end of something, a behavior that you can't control, that's taking you away from things. I have a question for you. So this slide is news to you?
No.
Anybody here would be like, what? Drugs are bad? What? Ain't nobody tell me. Drugs are bad? I thought drugs were good. What's that all this time? I'm like, drugs, amazing, good. Right? So why are we talking about this tonight? Let me make it a little bit more awkward. Let me make it a little more morbid. Ready for the morbidness? If you hear today, if I tell you, hey, I don't know you, we just met. Somebody your age, Bad Shur, God forbid, Bad Shur, passed away. What are you thinking? Number one thought? Drugs? Car accident. Right? In that order, really. So the statistics kind of show more likely for it to be an accident, but right up there is drugs. So, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Okay, accidents happen. People get into accidents happen. But drugs, everybody knows drugs are bad. Right? That's what you guys just told me. So a Coptic person passing away from drugs should be like, wait a minute, that should never happen. Why does it happen? Yeah.
Curiosity.
Maybe. Yeah.
The environment around them.
The environment, good, maybe. What else? Yeah.
Mental health.
Mental health, very good. What else? Yeah.
Going along with environment, peer pressure.
Peer pressure, very good. Anyone else? Good. Those are very good thoughts. My belief, yes.
Hopeless.
Hopeless, very good. My belief, and I think the belief of the church, is that every single one of these unfortunate events are 100% preventable. And it's part of why we're doing this here tonight. It's not because I want to tell you something. I'm going to tell you some stuff you probably don't know, to be fair. If I don't know something that you don't know, I don't know, I'm doing medicine. Right? But it's not going to be the main point, is it? Because right now, what's not going to convince you is like, oh, I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was like that bad. What I'm hoping is going to convince us is part of the things that you guys mentioned of why somebody would jump into these things in the first place. The curiosity, maybe is not worth it. The environment, maybe now we need to make an environment that's so strong, it's like, yo man, you can't be playing with fire because this will kill you. One of the things that we do really well as Coptic people is like we fellowship like crazy. Our friend group, I remember for us, when I was in high school, the moms would like say about us that we like would bow each other, and we also saved each other. One particular mom said that about our friend group. You guys get to save each other. It's not going to be this presentation that's going to save you. I'm hoping that you can save each other. But we'll go on. This question, why aren't you a drug addict? He's like, I am. I was waiting to come out to you today, but it's a little more awkward than I thought it would be.
It's because I've learned that it's bad.
Good, because you learned that it's bad. Curly, why aren't you a drug addict? Church, bravo, Jesus. Recognize the verse first before you tell me church. You, why aren't you a drug addict?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Church.
You guys are going to repeat, come in the same place. Someone say, Baba Yeshua. Someone say, Zabayda. I want to tell you about this for a second. A lot of times, those are good answers, by the way. Yes, one of the reasons you're not Actually, before I get to this, I'll tell you this. The reason why I ask you that question is because maybe you haven't thought about that question before. Have you thought that question before? Have you looked in the mirror and said, why am I not like on drugs? Some of you are like, yo, I feel like I am though. I feel like something is not right. No, but the reason I ask you is like this, right? If your answer is church, church is amazing. But maybe you go to college for a year and you're not near a church. If your answer is like my parents, there's going to be a time where you're in a situation where your parents are not around. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's important for you to answer this question.
If you said Christ.
Christ? Aywa. No, but in real talk, that has to be your real foundation. I'll be honest with you, just full disclosure. When I was in high school, if somebody asked me, why aren't you a drug addict? I would say, I guess I haven't had the opportunity. That's really, you know what I mean? I haven't been to the right party. Just honestly. But when I was in college, in my second half of my first year of college, I would say, no, I can't be a drug addict because Christ is real, because Jesus is the real deal. And I got to be focused on Jesus, man. Just telling me drug addict. You can't tell me weed, shisha. Shisha your face. What are you talking about? This is why this is the core of our presentation, fellas. And I'll just be, again, can I be honest with you? If in this part, you gotta answer for yourself in an honest way. If your answer to this question is ay kalam, then the next time somebody passes you a joint in the wrong setting, and you don't have a strong enough answer, my mom. Yes, salam. It's not gonna cut it. There's gonna come a time where it's not gonna cut it. And that joint will turn into a little nose candy. I joke about it because it's funny to some degree. But the seriousness of your answer will determine your life choices. Does that make sense? If right now you're giving me an ay kalam answer, it's because you don't know that answer yet. Maybe take Lent to figure that out. What's my real motive? What's my real drive for me not to become a drug addict? Maybe you're like me. It's okay. That will be the first step of admitting it. Saying, I don't know. Maybe I would have been if I was in a different setting. I mean, it's this Friday night, but I got plans for next Friday night. So I encourage you to think about it and to let go of the fluff, the stupid answer that you said when you were 8. Anybody here 8? Anyone? You're 8? 8 years old? You look pretty young for your age. Okay. We're going to go through this again at the end, but I want to show it to you. I want to sandwich our talk with repentance in the beginning and repentance in the end. We talk a lot about repentance in the church because maybe this is something you've tried before, or you're thinking about, well, I haven't tried weed, but I do have an addiction. I feel like I keep doing things that I don't want to do. I'm going to preview it to you, but I'll talk about it more in the end. There's basically a synchronized way to repent because I want to get into this content for a little bit. What do we know about your brain? Well, we know that your brain is developing. For some of you at least. More than others. And that you're in a critical period. This is like a time in your life where your brain, if you want to be a doctor, anybody want to be a doctor? Anybody want to go into healthcare? Oh good, it's becoming less popular, I hope. This window period is a sensitive period for you. Whether or not you want to do something in healthcare or want to do something in a career-wise, like anybody here need your brain long-term? Yeah, I know it's questionable. We're like, it hasn't really helped me so far. Okay. And I wanted to mention to you, we can't. That's biology. That's This is, we're not going to belabor it. I will definitely test you, and if you fail, you can't take communion. I just wanted to show you that there is a biological basis to your reward system. The reason why you do something, and that something could be Starbucks or Auntie Anne's pretzels. Like you walk by and you smell and you're like, oh, you gotta get me that pretzel. I don't know if you ever had that experience. Well, stay off the pretzels then. Don't try them. You have one, it's like Pringles. So, Pringles fan in the back. Is there something that you feel like you can smell it and you just crave it? or you see it and you just crave it, kofta. Oh, now we're in Lent. Now we're gonna really. We'll talk about food, so don't tempt you. Whether it's substances, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, nicotine, heroin, all do the same thing. It triggers your brain. It releases a substance. It opens basically a door that says, whoa, we're having a great time. Let's do this experience again. Over time, though, same trigger, less of the opening of the door. Oh, we gotta do more of this. Yes.
Why is it too heroin?
There's so much heroin that like,
Sorry.
no problem. Over time, there's less of that door. Oh man, I just remembered I had a great video. Maybe I'll see if I can pull it up at the end. But you're all familiar with this idea, right? That you can get habitualized or something. That you do it and you need more of it. You need more of it. You need more of it to feel the same effect. Well, yeah. Side note on this. Why would this be possible? Think about this in a positive way. Is there possible to have like a good addiction?
Yeah. This is the Bible.
Oh, you look like you're a big time addict to the Bible. Be sure to in that good Bible.
Coming to church.
Coming to church. He's like, how does he know that I'm a Bible addict? Coming to church is a good example. So, the idea maybe not of an addiction, but of a habit, of like a lifestyle. You form a lifestyle, you form a habit where your brain could literally, if you get into such a mood that you're enjoying, imagine, you enjoy being with God.
God forbid.
God forbid. Well, he's not forbidding. He's going to allow that one. Right? Where you come to church on a Friday night and it's like, yo, this is actually, I feel like it's doing something for me. Like, this is a good thing. And some more of that same opening of the door and your body is telling you, here is the same chemical, the same dopamine, because this is refreshing. This is good. This is good for me. This is like a side note, maybe spiritual meditation, of the fact that part of our addiction is the brokenness of our own genome, but maybe part of what the addiction is, part of our ability to get hooked on something, is not just to say, I'm going to avoid being hooked on the wrong stuff, but you can actually get hooked on the right stuff. You can get into a habit of like, man, if I don't start off my day with prayer, it feels weird, because I got into a habit of it. Physically, like your body has now gotten used to it. Does that make sense? I know we may not necessarily be there, but think about a time, like even like Holy Week. You get into a routine of like, Thok Gom, and like you're in the mode, you're in the spirit, and you're like following along, that the next week kind of feels a little weird, doesn't it? It feels like, when is the next Baskin? Oh, next year. I'm going to show you some pictures, and I don't know what this will do for you, but I wanted to show them to you anyway. Have you ever thought about what drugs can do to your brain? It's going to just make it awesome, right? This is more along the lines of drugs are bad. These are something called SPECT scans, single photon emission computerized tomography. They basically look at brain metabolism, how your brain uses up sugar, and what it looks like on certain conditions. We'll run through a whole bunch of these. This is your normal brain. This is George's brain. Very vibrant, colorful, full of life. This is the brain from the bottom. This is the top. This is the bottom. This is the active view. This is after a motor vehicle accident, so a little car accident. Man, it looks like it's really impacted. So this is not showing you the anatomy of the brain, it's showing you the metabolism, like how the brain is taking up nutrients, okay? Alzheimer's, see the difference there between normal and not normal. Heroin, after 25 years, a 25-year-old heroin addict. You see it? The difference between the two? So this is a case of someone who used heroin for 10 years and then methadone for 7 years. At this time of the SPECT scan, they're 40 years old. The hallmark of these pictures are going to be, the normal one is going to look pretty good, the abnormal one is going to look pretty scary. Anybody here feel like this brain looks awesome? Like I'd want to have this brain. There's a hata here? That's awesome. Okay. This one is very interesting. What's THC? Weed. So, 16 years of daily THC use, someone who's 32 years old. Anybody here know someone who smokes weed? Everyone. Anybody here know somebody who vapes? Everyone. You don't want to raise your hand? We'll say everybody, but not raise your hand. Well, raise the hand. So this is impacting somebody that you know. How about just 2 years of daily weed use? Somebody who's 16. How old are you guys? How does that look? What do you think? It looks weird. Yeah. Yeah, it looks about right. Someone like you, using weed daily for 2 years. Someone using it 10 years, but mostly on weekends. Because it's something that somebody will say too. Someone will say, like, yo, I smoke, but like not all the time. I just smoke sometimes. I just smoke around company. I just smoke around friends. And you notice that the impact is not that far off. This is 2 years of frequent cocaine use in a 24-year-old. You notice the brain becomes, the metabolism of the brain becomes like totally disfigured. It really takes a direct toll on you because one of the things I think that people wonder is like, okay, they're like bad, but can I see how bad it is? Can I see the impact? 8 years of heavy meth. See that difference? Yeah. 17 years of heavy weekend alcohol use. What is the most commonly abused drug in America?
Alcohol.
Very good. You wouldn't have thought that unless I was on the slide. But that's something, people don't usually think of alcohol as a drug because how many people here know somebody who's drinking or has gotten drunk? Is alcohol now becoming less popular in your age group, you think, than marijuana was? Still the same accessibility, maybe, but because now people can just vape everywhere instead of having to drink. Anyway. 17 years of heavy weekend alcohol use. Just kind of showing it to you from different angles, from top, bottom. Cigarette use. 27 years of heavy cigarette use. Yes. So that's a very good question. So actually I'm going to show you a picture of the reversibility of that.
Coffee?
Huh? What's coffee?
It's a cigarette.
No, but like
Oh, this is not just coffee. This is cigarette and coffee. Yeah. Because they're actually one... Huh?
Coffee effective?
No.
Shve.
He's asking this
Like,
coffee.
how
Does coffee alone affect you?
Like,
Oh,
how bad, like, seriously.
No, I don't think...
stimulant though.
Yeah, I don't think there's... So this is one of the reasons why they're still considering the effect of long-term caffeine use. Actually, where the literature is now... they throw in the coffee here use, but I think the heavier issue, the cigarette use. Long-term mortality, meaning less chance to die, is with more coffee. So coffee's okay. The issue is with the cigarette use, which sometimes can go hand in hand for people with you smoke, you have a cigarette, you smoke, you have a cigarette. Or you smoke and you drink, you have a coffee, rather, that's what I meant to say. If you smoke and you have a cigarette, then it's awkward. Here's to the question that we had here. On the left, you have someone with polysubstance use, like a lot of stuff. Maybe a little this, a little that. And then, on the right, is after 1 year clean, you begin to see the reversibility of it. You begin to see, we used to think, maybe when I was like beginning medical school, the common teaching was like, if you damage your brain is fried, like you're done. We began to learn later what the Bible taught, which is in Romans 12, that you can renew your mind. This idea of neurogenesis, that your brain regenerates, relives. Before I lose you, I'm going to finish this thought. Any questions on this so far? Yeah.
You're showing us like the physical difference, but for the pictures that were on the right, like what's the psychological difference?
Very good question. And I'm actually getting into that. No, that's... So the point of these pictures was to show you like an image. And then I'm going to get to you a little bit here. There's some... But I don't want to belabor this. Let's talk a little bit about the psychological differences And we'll start with weed. Again, you guys all told me that everybody knows somebody who smokes weed. My first question, could weed make you, yes?
Sorry, can you just show the picture of Adderall?
Yeah.
Because that's like a big thing in
Oh,
college.
okay, thank you for that.
Where was it? The last one.
Yes. Here's the thing with Adderall, ADD, ADHD. Treat a lot of people with this kind of thing. If you have this and you're being treated by a psychiatrist, it is perfectly appropriate from the church standpoint and from the scientific standpoint for you to take Adderall, Concerta, whatever medication that you need for it. If you do not have it, it is very damaging to your brain. There's a big difference. And it's not a good reason, oh, I gotta study more. I'm gonna just get on Adderall. It's very common, you're right. I'm glad you brought it up.
I've seen like groups where like 30 or 40% of the class says that they're doing it just for studying habits.
Right. And it's tragic because it's really not that hard to get now because you can, whether you're getting it from indirect sources or you're getting a legit source, but you're not being truthful. So thank you for bringing it up. The cautionary thing is whether it's Adderall actually, so Adderall really commonly, or that brand or that class of medication, people abuse it because again, and I can see this in our community, because we were so competitive. Why you get the A-? Get the A. Why you get 99? Final 100 and a half. Right? That's how we produce all this incredible talent. Shh. But the point is, there's a temptation for that, and there's a real damage for this that can happen too. Okay? So speaking then of competitively trying to enhance your performance, can weed make you dumber? Sometimes you can just tell. Right? My man is advanced research. So, anybody here think no? Be honest. Because weed is a particularly interesting thing because the more and more it becomes popularized and legalized, it's going to be more and more around us. So yes, it can. I've known a lot of people growing up, smoke a lot of weed, just got progressively slower. Right? And we're like, hey man, sabah khair, like where are you? Short-term memory, overall IQ. Does that make sense? Does that sound true to you? Or have you not really seen it yet?
100%.
You have. Right? Who feels like, no, this is a little skeptical? Anybody? Who feels like, no, I totally could see this? Okay. All right, good. So I won't belabor it. Has an impact on your ability to continue to be in school or drop out of school for the same reason. Here's the part that I really want to say to my man over here. I just saw somebody in the office last week, or maybe we'll call it last month, a little bit, maybe a year older than you. And they were like, yo, I smoked weed a couple times, but I started having these thoughts that I knew weren't real. I felt like people hate me. I felt like people were trying to come, like, follow me. And they were like, I was getting psychotic. Regular, upper middle class, college person. Very determined, gonna be a surgeon. Not like that. You ain't operate on me. Thinking you get what I'm saying? Did you know this? Bet you didn't. Is there any correlation between smoking weed and becoming psychotic?
Yeah.
I mean, I hope you say yeah, because on the screen. Did you know that before today? Maybe some of you didn't. And maybe you think, come on, it's like 1 in a million, it's not. I'm not that old, and I've seen it a lot. And I'm not that old. I know I look old. And I've seen it in your age. Like people who are like, yo, I just smoked once, and it was crazy. I started hearing voices, and I wound up in the ER. I'm not that kind of person. Why am I here? Oh, it was just a bad batch. No, it could have been a good batch. And actually, I don't know if I put it in the slides. Some people ask me like, no. Somebody asked me this today at work. They said, Doc, yo, let me get that good stuff though. Like, what do you mean? That medical marijuana. I'm like, that's not a thing. There is no such thing as medical marijuana. There's no hospital that's like growing weed in their backyard. Has there been shown some medicinal purposes in some situations for some people? Yes. Is there a thing called medicinal marijuana? No. And it's always compared to like placebo, by the way. But it's a side note. Because always the counter argument to marijuana is like, oh, what about my glaucoma? My man, you're 14, you ain't got glaucoma. Stop playing. You're not believing, you're not fooling anybody here. What about my chronic pain? If you have chronic pain, we'll talk later. It's a different conversation. See what I'm saying? For most people who are smoking weed, they don't know this between 2 and 7% change, like 7 times as much. And again, the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, they have something that they focus on each month. They say, listen, all the psych people in the world, y'all gotta know about this. 2 months ago, their main focus, guess what it was? Marijuana in adolescence. And then it's 100% correlation between a decline in your, like my man over there asked, curly number 2, what's your name? Ben? That's a cool name. Well, Ben asked, how does it impact you psychologically? Anxiety, depression, severe anxiety to the point where you can't function anymore. Severe depression where you might get suicidal. Again, I had a patient recently, and they were like, I don't know, like my senior year of high school, like I'm chilling, life is good, but I was having a horrible time. And I was getting so sick, and I was getting really to the point where I considered taking my own life. This was a few months ago. And they were like, but I feel a little bit better now. I'm like, what changed? They're like, well, I don't think anything changed, but I didn't stop smoking weed completely. And I don't feel quite as depressed. I'm like, you think maybe because of a relationship? Like, oh, yeah. So I want you to know that part. Is that part clear? Depression, anxiety, psychosis. Anybody here drive yet? Oh God, I'm scared. Just let me know when you're leaving. I'm going to leave before you. Okay, there is a relationship between this too, marijuana and driving. Because right now we don't test it. We don't have a way to check marijuana levels in the blood. But you could be high as a kite, driving down the turnpike. All kinds of stuff can happen. This one too. I won't belabor it, but a quick case, because people are always like, nobody dies from smoking weed. Inaccurate. You're not going to die directly from the weed, but guess what happened to this guy? You get super high, and you jump out the window. It happens. People get really high and do dangerous things. I've seen, sometimes they cover an emergency room, right? In the middle of the night, somebody gets really high, runs into front of traffic. Because you're like, yo, I'm like Frogger. No, bro, you're going to die. Take home points. There's opportunity and risk right now in your brain. It interferes with your functioning. It can have long-term memory and IQ damage. It's much more potent now than it was before. There's a risk of serious mental illness. Anyone here been into a psychiatric unit before? It's a place that you only want to be in if you need psychiatric services. Not a place that you want to be in because you smoked a whole lot of weed. And I don't mean to scare you about psych units. They're actually very friendly, very good places to be. My point there is not to induce yourself into that kind of place. Not safe. Real quick, for the sake of time, we have like 10 more minutes maybe? Yes. Go. You go?
Yeah.
10 minutes? Okay. Vaping. I don't want to miss this one. So we know, again, everybody knows somebody that vapes. It's become a huge multi-billion-dollar industry. It's a whole lot of money. We know what vapes are, right? The vape pens. You put stuff in them. You could teach me better, probably. Let me ask you this first. Are vapes safe? Is vaping like the safe alternative?
No.
Juul. You don't have to smoke cigarettes. Anybody here think that? Good. No one thinks that. Right? From you guys. Or if you think it, you're too scared to raise your hand. How about this? Do your friends think that vaping is safe? Yeah. Right? Your friends are wrong. Shocking again. So the FDA is warning us about vaping. Because now it's becoming, like the numbers, I should have pulled the numbers from a different slide. Numbers in your age group are skyrocketing compared to smoking nicotine-based products a few years ago, before vaping. Because now, it's in everybody's pocket. You just vape much, much more than you would have before. Much, much more than you would have smoking a cigarette. This is the thing, there's another misconception about vaping. It's just water, there's nothing else in it. Some chemicals that you may or may not know. Nicotine. Beta-glycol and glycerin, all kinds of stuff, like volatile organic chemicals. Less, I'll grant you, less than there are in cigarettes. Yes, there are more in cigarettes. But if you have less here and a lot more there, doesn't mean this one is safe. Does that make sense? Nicotine itself, very highly addictive substance. So when you start vaping, it's hard to stop. And that's why people vape like all day, like all the time, in all kinds of settings. This picture, we won't go through all of it, but how it impacts almost every organ in your body. Any questions about vaping? I didn't want to talk too much about it because I know at least you've had another lecture on it before. Questions? No? Hey. The cousin of vaping, the Egyptian cousin, is hookah. Shisha. Real quick fact check about this. People think this is safe. I hope not. Okay? Increased risk of cancer, lung disease, heart disease. And this one, you may or may not know. That each session is about 100 cigarettes. Are cigarettes safe? Cigarettes are not even cool anymore, from what I'm understanding. Like, I don't even see people who smoke cigarettes like in your age. Like, cigarettes, ugh, so ugly. I'm a vape though, I'm a vape god. You don't even know how to make circles. Right? So hookah or shisha. Hit somebody real hard back there. What's going on? All right. I've seen you on YouTube. So, 100 cigarettes. Again, we know cigarettes aren't safe, but it hits us. So we're going to close with this for the sake of time. Our main focus again was what? What is keeping me from doing these things? Why have I not become a vaping, weed smoking, whatever? Maybe it's the risk of the bad stuff. I want to go crazy. I'll lose my mind. I want to end up psychotic. The idea of hearing voices scares me. I don't know if it scares you. It scares me. Again, maybe it's your parents, your church, your community, all that kind of stuff. Make it a better answer. And then the idea of, well, okay, when we look at how can we challenge addiction in our own lives? How can we challenge doing things that we don't want to, like when we're trying to do things and we keep fighting our own selves? I want you to keep in mind these 12 steps. All the research on addiction shows the number one go-to thing. You ever heard of 12-step programs? Yeah. AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Ever heard that before? It's a Christian-based program. Did you know that? So I'll tell you. Christian-based program. And it's amazing to me that all these decades of research, still the number one most effective thing, AA 12-step programs. And I rewrote a little bit, but I'm still using the 12 steps. I rewrote them just for us to be kind of more useful, because a lot of people don't know the 12 steps. The one is we can't do this with our own power. That's how AA starts. It starts for us saying, you know what, I can't do this on my own, and I need Christ with me for this to really move. Christ can restore us. The third one that I'm harping on for you, how many people here were baptized? Anybody here Coptic? Good. The church fathers talk about this idea of renewing your baptismal vows. When you were a baby, your parents said, I vouch for you in the faith. They're Christian because of my faith. Right now, it's not cute anymore for you to goo-goo and gaga and say you're still Christian because of your mommy and daddy's faith. Have you yet made a decision about your own faith? Have you yet looked in the mirror and said, my baptismal vows, the ones that my parents took on my behalf, I know one priest that when he's baptizing a baby, he said, listen, are you going to raise this baby Orthodox in the right way of the church? If not, I'll take him. It's a little awkward in baptisms, but it works. How many of you right now, this would be like, let me give you the gross kind of analogy, is if right now, you guys, when you get hungry, you go to your mom to breastfeed. It's gross, right? It would be like, gross, I'm an adult, right? But for your faith, somehow, we're still like breastfeeding. Like, yo, you in high school, man? Bible. You shouldn't be waiting for your mommy to tell you which verse that is. You gotta tell me. So this part is very critical for us and as young high school people. We're becoming adults. Tell me your own decision. Tell me your renewal of your baptism. Then examine yourself, make honest confession. If you don't confess during Lent, then Lent is not going right for you the way it should be. That's my plug for confession. Preparing for God to work, meaning expecting God to actually do a change in you. Do you expect God this Lent to do a change? To have a different person come out at the end of Lent? Or do you expect, like, I started Lent with cheeseburgers, in the middle of Lent I had Boca burgers, and then I go back to cheeseburgers. Well, glory be to God for El Barakati. Right? That doesn't help anybody. Prepare for God to do actual work in your life during Lent and during this process. Ask God to remove the shortcomings, reconcile and make amends, meaning to your mama. Maybe you wronged your mama. Recognize where in these behaviors, because again, for us, maybe the behavior is not the bad stuff, the drugs, but maybe it's a lifestyle, maybe it's something that you've done that's a repetitive kind of sin, and you need to make amends for it. Continue to look in the mirror, connect with Christ, and have a spiritual awakening. Share this with other people. The last part I wanted to share with you on that 12 there, again, part of the strength of our community. You and your friends will either save each other or you'll just be continuous obstacles to each other. One of the things that we get, one of the opportunities we have, Curly, we get to set the expectations for each other. Let me give you an example, academically, right? When I was in high school, I remember this very vividly. I was in an art class, and I had a couple of friends in this art class who were like, we all looked equally dumb. Right? So the teacher was like, these kids are all dumb. That's okay. Habibi, it's okay. And she came and said, Habibi, did you pass any classes this marking period? I'm like, pass any classes? What are you talking about? Pass any classes? I'm like, smart. She's like, oh, of course, you passed 2? Very good. Gym and art? Excellent. What is the expectation that you have for each other at this juncture? Is it something like, oh, okay, survive Friday night. Make it through the end of this talk. Or is the expectation like, yo, for all of us together, like, yo, we're supposed to be saints. Like, real talk, this is what we're supposed to do. That's why we're not doing drugs. It's because we're on our Synaxarium game. This is who we are for real. For real. In the last 50 years, we've had a saint who was not clergy. His name is Habib. But couldn't get more Egyptian than that. Habib. In the next 50 years, there's supposed to be a Saint George, but a new one, and Mina, and like us now. That's why the question for us about drugs is not about, yo, don't do the bad drugs so that you don't become a bad drug addict. It's like, yo, we gotta rise above that because we're on our sainthood. Glory be to God forever. Questions? Take a second maybe to think about it.